Hello YouTube, this is Sam Gerrans from Qur'anite.com. Today's Tuesday the 26th of November 2019, and this is a quick video on the subject of what's going on online. And what I mean by that is YouTube channels being closed down and basically online censorship and so on. If you don't know, YouTube's just come out with some new terms and conditions for people who have channels, and I'm not going to kind of go over the details of it. I'm sure you can find that elsewhere, but in a nutshell, what they're doing is they've changed the wording, which means that they can basically shut you down for any reason without any sort of warning, if they think that you're not financially viable for them. So I mean, this isn't really anything you can define. It's just they can choose that can be the case. I'm not complaining about it. I'm quite frankly, I'm surprised that some level of internet freedom has lasted this long. So it's not like it's a huge surprise or anything. But just to let you know, the first thing is that I mean, my channel, although I use all my own material, I don't use anybody else's music, I don't use anything. Even so, it was demonetized, I think, in about April, which didn't matter to me because I don't take any money from my YouTube channel. I use YouTube and I find advertising annoying. So when I first started my channel, I did have some advertising on it. Not because I wanted to make money from YouTube. In fact, I've never actually taken a penny from YouTube, but because I thought it would help me in the search engine algorithms. I mean, I've worked for IT companies. I mean, obviously they're going to promote channels that are making them money. But I came to the view that advertising was just irritating, so I took it all off. So being demonetized didn't really bother me because it didn't make any difference to me. However, it will make a difference now. So because YouTube makes no money from my very small channel, it's going to mean that it's not financially viable, so it can be taken offline at any moment. So all that to say, I have contested the actually unfair, according to their own rules, if that means anything, the fact that my channel was demonetized, and that's going to take about a month or something to be reviewed. So all that to say, if they reverse the demonetizing decision, I'm going to put advertising, an advert at the beginning of each video or something, not because I want it there, but because it means that my channel may have a chance of lasting longer. If they don't allow it, and you don't really have it, as far as I can see, you don't have any right of recourse. It's just Google now owns pretty much the internet, and they can do exactly what they want, which I think was always the plan. I mean, clearly, we weren't given the internet for our good. So again, I'm not complaining. I'm just saying that, sort of explaining what the situation is. So if they don't re-demonetize me, or whatever the idiotic term is, then my channel could go at any moment. So with that in mind, what I have done is taken the precaution of myself and a young man who's been helping me. In fact, he did one of these entire batches of work, pretty much. All my stuff is being uploaded also to BitChute and to, what's the other one called? Library, LBRY. And so, if I disappear, that's where I'll be. So that's that. The next thing is, if you like what I do and you want to make sure that you can find out where I appear next, in this ongoing process of battling with the internet giants, you need to be on my mailing list. And to get on that mailing list, you need to go to Qur'anite.com and look for the newsletter. You'll just find it, and just put your email into it, and you'll be on my newsletter. So if everything disappears, I will send out a note, an email to all those people, and they'll be able to pick up from there. So that's that bit. As far as I'm concerned, I mean, perhaps it's obvious. I would hope it is, but being an internet person, having a YouTube channel wasn't the sort of the zenith of my ambitions. And quite honestly, once I've achieved what I want to achieve, in terms of finishing this book and warning the elite and so on, I don't know if I've got anything else to say or anything else to do, so I might just sort of disappear and see what else is left of my life after having done all this. I may not. I mean, we'll see. But it's not. It's if the internet disappeared for me, it's definitely not the end of the world. Other than how it affects my work. So that's that bit. The next thing I wanted to say is, if you want to see how things are changing, I'm just going to change hands because this is a bit. It's better. I've got the sun right in my eyes, as you can possibly see. If you want to see how things are changing, you just need to go onto Google and look up anything that's even slightly contentious, anything to do with popular narratives from the Second World War as regards the experience of Jews, or I don't know, vaccines or chemtrails or the shape of the earth or whatever it is, and just see what the returns are, just see what the results are, and you'll find that it's on every count it's pretty much either ludicrous misinformation or simply mainstream media machine mocking it all. Now again, I'm not complaining about this, but this is a bit of a weather vane for what's going on. All that to say is, we need to understand that the time that we're living in. So for me, having spent a lot of time in the ex-Soviet space and having read a few books and so on, we've had this before. There was something called samizdat in the Soviet Union, which was people printing literature clandestinely on paper and passing it, wrapped in a newspaper under a table to people in cafes, so they could read something that wasn't sanctioned by the state. There was a joke in the Soviet Union. There were two main party-controlled newspapers, one called Pravda, which means truth, and one called Izvestia, which means news. And the joke was, there's no truth in the news and there's no news in the truth. That's where it is now. We've been here before. Somebody with a kind of Soviet experience, I've always understood that, and what I see is this is communism 2.0 being rammed home using the language of freedom. It's not, when the communism 1.0, they used class. With the Hitlerian socialist experiment, they used race. But now they're using identity. But it's the same agenda. Anyway, all that to say is, if you have any intellectual interests that range outside of Kim Kardashian and sort of prurient, puerile entertainment and so on, then now's the time to go out there and get some books. I don't mean my books, I just mean any books. If you're interested in stuff, you should get it now, because things are changing, and I don't know how long, but quite soon it's going to be impossible to get anything. And if for you, like for me, you find less and less people with whom it's possible to have any sort of social intercourse whatsoever, because they're, and this doesn't count for everybody, but people are becoming absolutely standardized, and you still need some intellectual, mental food. Then the only place you're going to get that is in books. Places that I find very useful, eBay. You can, especially old books, especially books that I'm not, just because it's on paper just doesn't mean it's good. I'm not talking about Paulo Coelho and 50 Shades of Grey. I mean actual books that have got some stuff in that of the knowledge that went before the clampdown, before the lockdown. I mean, there are some wonderful writers out there, people like G.K. Chesterton or Hilaire Belloc or Plato or Aristotle. Get this stuff if you're interested. If you want to have something to occupy your brain, you need to get it now. Another way, of course, of doing it is downloading stuff and putting it onto a hard drive. I do have lots of PDFs saved, but I don't have an awful lot of confidence in that way. Although the upside with that is it's quite easy to transport it about the place. What I'm trying to say is the internet is going to start disappearing. It already is to some large extent. So if you've got interest in anything outside of simply mental bubblegum, then get it now, because having caught the tail end of the Soviet Union and spent a lot of time talking with real people. I'm not talking about the nonsense they tell you at university about Soviet history. I've sat for hours and outside in the yard with various places I've lived, talking to the old ladies who grew up under Stalin, and I've listened. And the thing is with tyranny is it never stops. And in America, the Christians think it's bad now. This hasn't started. This LGBTQPN agenda, it's just one part of it, of course. It's going to enforce insanity, and it's going to be really, really, really boring, and it's going to be insane. And if you want, I'm not just talking about the work that I've done. You're going to need some supplies for what's coming down the pike, and what I think I'm sort of talking about is an intellectual prepping. Also, if society is going to continue for any length of time after that, you're going to need the tools to do that. And there have been so many really great thinkers. Thomas Aquinas, whoever, Aristotle, Plato. The problem with today is people think that everything great has just sort of popped out the last 5 minutes. But once the iPhones go, once the electricity gets switched off, the internet, the paper is going to be the internet of the future. And what I'm trying to say is I've made my preparations. I've been buying books, and I don't just mean books of people with whom I agree, because that would be pointless. Because it's going to be even more lonely than it is now. And if you think it's bad now, you ain't seen nothing yet, as they say. So my own personal take on it is I want to finish the God Protocol and to deliver the warning, and it is a warning to the elite, because what we're living through is if you haven't worked it out yet, it's a business plan, and the people at the very top of this want this business plan, and if they were to, a very small number of men were to change their minds, all of this insanity would go away, and trying to sort of cut off the heads of the Hydra isn't going to cut it, and getting angry at the effects of it is just going to give you, a nervous breakdown. So for me, I'm sticking with what makes sense to me, applying the God Protocol, which is a method which has worked in the past, but I have no inside knowledge. I've no idea. I'm just going to finish this. But what I'm trying to say is, once that's done, it may well be that I'm going to disappear, because I don't personally, live for making YouTube videos and so on. I live to finish this particular plan of finishing my work on the Qur'an and providing my findings regarding the God Protocol, and then to execute on that. Outside of it, I don't have any inherent interest in it. And to be perfectly honest, to me personally, the internet is less and less interesting. It starts to repeat, and also just as regards YouTube, what you find is, I'm going to change arms again. what you find is that it starts to repeat. It starts to you reach a point of sadly diminishing returns. And for myself, I much prefer to study. I much prefer to brush up on my languages. I much prefer to study, read, think, books. The internet has become largely pointless. I mean, apart from online bureaucracy and all that stuff, for as long as that's possible. But to take YouTube, things, this is a YouTube channel. What I see is happening on YouTube is that it's becoming so sensationalist and insipid, with some notable exceptions, of course, but I'm talking about general tendencies that I think the next sort of downswing as YouTube gets rid of sites. They're getting rid of sites like, for example, MGTOW, Men Going Their Own Way, just because it doesn't fit in with the feminist narrative. They're petrified of a few good men. That's what they're really petrified of. And I think what will happen is it will become even more sterile than it is now. And what will continue to happen is a tendency which is obvious to everyone, I'm sure, which is that people having to make clickbait types of titles and so on, and then appear to deal with large subjects in smaller and smaller amounts of time. Learn Serbo-Croat in 25 seconds or whatever it is, to the point where it's just going to be only froth and no real content. It's going to be only sensationalism and only self-aggrandizement and so on, without any actual vitamins to it. For myself, I'm at the point where, given the chance of, and I've found amazing stuff on YouTube, but it's getting to a point where there's very little left that's of any real use. So, all I'm trying to say is I think that's going to get worse, and I think that it's going to be a sterile environment, and what they're going to do is to try to drop the vitamin content that is possible to get slowly, so that you don't notice it, and eventually you'd just be sitting there looking at Kim Kardashian twerking, thinking, where's all the good content gone? But actually you won't be thinking that, because you won't have noticed it. Anyway, that's it. That's my thoughts on this subject. Again, I'm not complaining. I don't see any point. I'm personally very grateful for the opportunity that I feel God has allowed me and others to share their thoughts with a large audience, or at least potentially huge audience, in a time would not have been possible at any other time. But I certainly don't kid myself for a moment that this is a right of any kind. The ruling elite do what they do, and my position has never been that the ruling elite don't have a right to be the ruling elite. They have a right to be the ruling elite, but they need to be held accountable, and making them accountable under the protocol of God is what I'm about. I'm not about trying to change reality. The reality is that we're ruled by very wealthy, extremely powerful people, and that's just reality. And I prefer to deal with reality. It's just easier, and if you manage to crack that egg, then you've achieved something. Whereas just frothing about what you wish were true but isn't going to get anybody anywhere, is it? Anyway, that's all for now. I hope everyone's well.
If you're listening on YouTube, you can download my full translation of the Qur'an free using the button in the top right hand corner, or buy the hard copy there at 10% less than on Amazon. I also encourage you to sign up for the Qur'anite Plus newsletter on the site to get occasional micro updates. You can download the audio from my YouTube videos to your mobile device using the links in the drop down below. I recommend meetquranites.com to connect with other Qur'an alone believers. Like if you like, comment if you have something constructive to say, and subscribe to get more each week. And use the link in the drop down below to donate if you would like to help me keep doing this. And remember, this life is short, eternity is long. If you want good trees, plant good seeds.